Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Matt Kim's going to be here in just a few minutes. We are going to be talking about a little bit about him. He's really been successful in his almost 2 years of podcasting, nailing some like really big interviews with Tucker Carlson. He interviewed Andrew Tate. Who is this last one? Doug Wilson, which I thought was like super interesting. Well,
I
hey
don't know why it
Matt,
doesn't
welcome to
work.
the space. Welcome to your very first X Space. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'd be better if I could figure out how to get in. But appreciate the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Dude, you made it. You're here, Matt, and we're really glad to have you, man. We appreciate you coming to this space tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait to hear about your career and some of the stuff you think about technology and politics. It's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Awesome. I'm excited. And I'm not echoing or anything, am I? I'm not
No,
too
you
bad.
sound great.
Awesome.
Are you on
Okay.
desktop, Matt? I'm curious. Are you on
Well,
desktop? You on the phone?
I was on desktop and I couldn't get in. I heard you saying I bet just because it's on desktop. So I hit allow on the mic and all of this, and it was going nowhere. So I just closed it and I jumped on my phone.
Okay, perfect. Matt, we're going to hold off on adding other people to the panel right now because we're going to do just a little brief interview with you first before we start taking questions from the audience, whoever comes up for the panel. But if you see someone in particular that you want to add, I didn't know if your co-host is going to be joining us tonight or it's just you.
Yeah, I see Peter hanging out in here somewhere. I saw him.
Oh, nope, I do see him. I'm going to go ahead and add him to speaker, but I mean,
Whatever you guys want to do, it's your show. I'm just glad to be here.
yeah, so he really cracks me up. So maybe he'll like to chime in unless he's on desktop too. Peter, if you're on a desktop, go get on your phone so you can hop into this space. Just request a microphone whenever you're ready. Matt, you let's just get right into it. Is that I mean, your podcast has literally taken off like a rocket over the past year. You've been podcasting for almost 2 years now, right?
It's been barely a year.
I thought
Um,
it was almost two.
maybe a year and a half, something like this. January of last year is when I did my first episode. So, and I don't think the first 5 months counts because the first 5 months no one's listening, and your friends say they're listening, but they're not because they're lying to you because your podcast sucks. And so it takes time. I think it's actually exactly 1 year since we started seeing a little bit of momentum.
Yeah. So I was listening to an interview and you were like, I literally didn't know how to start a podcast. So I just Googled how to start a podcast. You're not alone. You are not alone. I did the same thing. I've been podcasting for about 3 years now. I just really enjoy bringing cool people on and asking them questions. And the audience is really just a bonus for me because at the end of the day, I'm talking to people who are teaching me something, right? It's this audio that hopefully lives for a very long time. Maybe our kids will listen to it. Somebody will find it and be like, listen to what they're talking about in 2021 and 2022 and 2023. And then this is when, Trump got indicted and so on and so forth, or COVID and, just all of these things. So at the very least, it's audio recording, right? For the future. But you've interviewed some really great guests. Before we get into that, I want to just ask you, like, over this past year, about these two moments, if you've had them, a eureka moment for your podcast and then a yikes moment for your podcast.
I think the eureka moment is something I learn every day, which is that there are a lot of great people out there in society, a lot of great Americans out there, a lot of concerned people that kind of want to know the truth, want to know what's going on in the world, and really are looking for honest, genuine content and honest, genuine feedback. I think that's so needed. I think the yikes moment is that there is so little honest, genuine content out there in the world because I look for people to maybe pull information from or watch also. And I'm like, I think a lot of it's propaganda. So trying to decipher who's propaganda, who's genuine, and I don't even think it's about what they're talking about. It's the intent in which they're saying it, and that's the hardest thing to figure out. And that's kind of the struggle that I'm in right now, which is who can I trust? Because there are so many people trying to tell you how to think, what to think about. You really have to kind of boil it down to maybe a top handful of people that you think that are honest and genuine, and that they actually have your better interest in mind. I think the internet is broken down into two categories. There are 99% which are content creators, which create content for themselves, right? Money, power, influence. Bang. And then there's that 1% that creates content for the benefit of others, to inform others, to better people's lives. And I think that's really hard to find that rare few people, and that's what I'm constantly looking for.
Well, Matt, I think you're going to be just very pleasantly surprised. I follow some amazing people
Mm,
here on X. We have Lou. She's got a microphone right now. She is a co-host on a couple of different shows here on X, and she's surrounded by some really great people. And so definitely consider as we get into the Q&A part, as people introduce themselves, following along, because this is now where, I get my information from. And these X spaces, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to start a space like I start a podcast and tell you what the news is and tell you what I think. And your only chance to rebuttal is in the comments. And then hopefully somebody agrees with you down in the comments. You can just request a microphone and come up here and be like, you know what, Matt? I think you're totally wrong. I think you're not seeing the bigger picture here.
mm.
Or did you know about this or whatever? And you can have those real conversations. So I think you're in for a really treat being on this X Space tonight.
Amazing. I'm really excited about that.
Kind of going back, like I've been watching your podcast for a few months now, but just going back to like those bigger moments, right? Like watching you interview Tucker, that was a big deal. I felt for you. I mean, I would like to be on, talk to Tucker. I want to interview him though. Have you ever been on someone else's podcast, like how you're on our podcast now? Or are you
Yeah.
typically the interviewer?
No, I've been doing a little bit more. Really, I like doing the really small ones, the ones that maybe if I'm on there, I can actually help out because I think that's amazing. Because I know how hard it is. I know that my first 6 months when I was kind of grinding and trying to figure things out, that if someone that had a bigger audience would come on my show, that'd be really exciting. So I try to do a little bit of that. I think I've recently did a podcast where the guy had 5 followers and we talked for like 2 hours. So, so I think that's a cool opportunity to get people started and give people an opportunity, a chance. So I do more of those. Every once in a while, I'll do them if people request. I don't know. I'm really open for pretty much anything these days, just because I think conversation matters, and I think just putting your ideas out in the world, I think eventually, it comes back and you create good vibes out there.
Definitely. And I'm going to let Divisive go. Divisive, introduce yourself to Matt since I don't think you guys had a chance to get acquainted.
Mm,
Hey, what's up, Matt? I really appreciate you coming in this Twitter space tonight. Something you said really struck me. You said you don't know who's propaganda, and we've got people that are out here creating content for themselves. That was the reason I started Divisive Content. I have a live stream. I'm more of a live streamer than a podcaster. I do a live stream here on X, and I also found content creators that I thought had good values. Two of them are on the stage with us right now, and I convinced them to start multi-streaming their live streams to X because I was worried about the degeneracy that I was seeing promoted to the youth, especially the young men of
mm,
America. There's a lot of degenerate podcasters that these young men are looking up to that go out and commit crimes on stream or doing drugs on stream. And it's something that really bothered me. So I really resonated with what you said there. And I think what you do is amazing because you go into these conversations with people like Tucker, Doug Wilson. I remember your episode with Diamond Dallas Page. I think that's one of the most underrated. You know what I mean? That's Diamond Dallas Page, man. That was an underrated show. And I think that's the stuff that people need to be inspired by. That's the type of content that I try to promote with my audience and with young men. So I really do appreciate you being here. And man, we got to do a live stream together. Have you ever done a live stream?
Dude, let me in. I'm down. I'm down for anything. You never know until you try. We'll try anything once, and I think that's the best way to learn. I mean, when I did the interview with Tucker, we did it live. I had never done a live interview like that before, and for some reason, the biggest interview of my life, I decided I'm going to do it live for everyone to look at and watch and judge. And the reality was, if that goes well, then maybe I have a future in this, and maybe I'm good at this. And if I put myself in the ultimate stress position with the ultimate amount of kind of eyes and things to go wrong. And if I underperform, then maybe I'm not cut off for it. And I did, and that worked out amazing. And I thought it went really well. So I'm still here. If that
Dude,
didn't go well, maybe I wouldn't be here still. You never know. You never
you
know where life takes you.
you absolutely crushed that interview,
Well,
my
thank you.
friend. You undersell yourself, and I think one of the things that resonates with a lot of people is when they watch you have these conversations. You come at these conversations from truly from a place of getting to know the
Mm,
person you're having the conversation with, and that's very refreshing. You're not a corporate robot reading off
mm.
a script, right? And that's all the American people have gotten for so long.
Yeah, I don't do notes when I interview. I don't do prepared questions. I actually go in with nothing in my head. And I do that intentionally because I feel like if you have too many questions prepared, then really you kind of know the answers you're going to get because while you're writing out questions, 'cause that's how I started. When you write out questions, your next question has a logical place that your original first question was, meaning you subconsciously knew where that question was going to go. You actually knew the answer. So it becomes really predictable. And for you or in the interviewer, it's not as interesting. I think when you kind of glow in blind, at least for myself, when I go in blind, then it kind of goes to a natural place where you never expected it to go. And I'm surprised, I'm interested. And if I'm interested, hopefully you get something more honest and genuine. So I actually stopped doing those altogether. I walk in with nothing, which is maybe not the best idea for everybody, but that's how I do it.
No, that's really good advice. That's typically how I interview. I might look at some of their content, or some of these people I've really gotten to know in X Spaces before I even
Mm,
interview them. So it feels like I'm just talking to a friend usually. I don't know if my husband is listening, but he's the one that encourages me of like, and how do you prepare? And are you taking notes? And all of these other things. And I'm just like, I podcast on Saturday when he's not home, and I just wing it 99.9% of the time, right? Sometimes I'm like, I really want to ask them about X, Y, or Z, right? I do have
mm,
one question that I wrote down specifically for you. When you were talking to, who is that? John Dorsey, and he's like exposing all these influencers, right? And he's got a following, he's doing the awards of the entire interview that I thought was very entertaining because he's just kind of a cool dude, right?
yeah.
You guys were talking about paying for podcast, and I
Mm.
was like, paying to be on other people's show or people paying you and stuff like that. And I was like, wait a second. I've been podcasting for 3 years. I've never asked anybody for money. Nobody's asked me for money. Am I missing out? Like, what am I going to charge? $5? And so I just want to put it out there. Like, are you, do you have NDA for that? Are you paying? Are people being paid? What's
Well,
the rate here?
the podcast economy is a real thing. I would say usually people pay. For the record, I've never paid. I've never been paid. However, I've had a lot of agents, reps, etc. approach me. You should have people on your podcast. We get them on there for you, or I can get you on this podcast. And I'm not going to say whose podcast they are because I don't feel like that's right. But I've been offered to be on other people's podcasts, some prominent podcasts, and there will be a charge to get on there because they're sharing their audience with you. Or people will pay people to come on their podcast. So the entire economy of podcast, I truly thought it was the most honest form of media left. And then when you realize and you see the economy behind it, it's entertainment. And I think that was really a disappointing moment for me. So when you talk about the kind of the moments over the last year that were disappointing, I think that's one of them. Because when I started, I thought for sure this was an honest thing. People are talking to each other because they want to talk to each other. Like we're talking now because we wanted to talk to each other. And then you realize there's kind of this, but it's such a huge business and economy to think that there wouldn't be an economy around it. Maybe that was naive on my part, you know?
Yeah, maybe, but maybe I'm more naive than you because you guys brought it up and I really didn't even think about it. I had never even thought about it of like, oh, I wonder if this person's being paid or how much. Never even did a Google search. That wasn't in my Google search for how to be a podcaster. Dang it.
They don't tell you that. That doesn't come up in the first three pages of Google. It's in the results where you say 1 million more results, but you never get to the 1 million results. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, I saw your post on Instagram today and you seemed a little down, like you were
Hmm.
thinking about, who can you trust, who can you not trust? And I don't feel like I've seen that across your Instagram page like at all. So I was just wondering like starting out podcasting, did you feel like you were red pilled and do you feel like maybe you're being black pilled now or do you feel like you're just searching for more good people?
I think I'm searching for more people. I think there was a quick moment there where I was a little disappointed because you start to see maybe the people that you looked up to, maybe people you trust, um, a lot of people online that you think may be genuine, and you slowly realize they're not. And it's kind of disappointing. And then I put that post up, and if you go through the comment section, I didn't put it on X. I don't know why I didn't put it on X. But I put it on Instagram, and there's like 1,000 messages of people just so supportive and so loving, and just really reaching out and kind of giving so much affirmation. And I thought that was so amazing. And that kind of feeling of disappointment, actually reading the comments and going through them, like I'm so good with it now, And I think that's the most amazing thing about being honest and genuine and letting people know that you are. Because I mean, I got DMs. I mean, this only been like 3 hours since it's been up. I have like 100 DMs and 1,000 comments, and everyone just, you got to keep going. We appreciate it, etc. And it was a really eye-opening thing. I didn't think that post would have any traction. I just kind of put it out there because I was feeling a little frustrated. And I don't know. I'm feeling really energized. Feeling really hopeful. I'm feeling like we actually can make a difference because the idea was like, who can you trust when everything that you see is a lie, right? The media lies to you, the news lies to you. It's not even sometimes maybe factual, but the timing of it is to manipulate how you think and how you see the world and how you perceive the world to garner up certain emotions. The education system lies to you, the medical system lies to you, your government lies to you, your teachers are lying to you, your doctors are lying to you. It's a lot of lying going on in the world, and I think it just kind of came crashing down at one moment for me. And to see the amount of people that are pushing back against that, I'm feeling hopeful right now.
Good, good. Yeah, I was definitely like, "Oh no, Matt." I felt the same way. I like dropped you a comment. I'm like, being a truther, getting to the truth, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And
Yes.
now that I'm surrounded by, some several really great people that are doing more of the work, I feel like the information that I'm getting is a bit better. And so I'm better informed to be able to talk to people, but I don't feel as like okay, like during COVID when we couldn't talk to each other because everybody's getting blocked and banned and they're putting you in little boxes all over the place, and your family and your friends are turning their backs on you and stuff like that, and you don't know what you can say to who you say. We as a nation, as a globe, I feel suffered some post-traumatic stress syndrome, okay, and I still think that we have yet to really recover from that because of the lack of accountability and how it's just like psyop after event, after tragedy, after psyop, after event, after it's like it seems like it's never ending. You know what I do, Matt? I go just play in the garden. But I I'm growing fruits and vegetables and just doing my own thing sometimes. Like I gotta do something else besides just worry about the world falling apart. But one other thing I was going to say about being around some of these people that I'm sure you'll get to meet tonight is that these are people of action. So these are people like I did an interview with Christian Lamar, and he's the Arizona executive. Oh my gosh, Lou, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But for precinct committeeman, right? And we just talked about just different ways to be active, how to be a precinct committeeman. I mean, he is a phenomenal guest, and he's here on Spaces. He's got his DMs open to whomever, and that's all he's doing is he is just leading the way, doing what he's supposed to be doing, being a good example. And there are many others. I won't hold you right this moment. Go ahead, Divisive. And anybody that's requesting a microphone right now, if you guys could just keep your request in, hold off for a moment, make sure you're sharing out the space. It's linked at the top. Thanks to Lou. We will start bringing some people up for questions once we get into current events. Go ahead, Divisive.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I had a moment like that when I was covering the Hunter Biden trial. I was on the
Mm.
ground in Wilmington, right, Matt? And I was asking people, did you know the trial was going on? And I kept running into these people and they said, no, I didn't even know it was happening. And it was kind of like I had this moment where I was like, man, they live in the city where this big like global event. I mean, it's a global event. I mean, I know it's national news, but it has global implications. And they don't even understand that this is happening. And it kind of started to blackpill me until I spoke to a young man in that YouTube video. And after we told him what was going on, we went back to the courthouse and he was there with his friends at the courthouse. And I was like, wow, that's what I needed. I needed to see that if someone had the information, they actually would care and do something about it. So I wanted to ask you, what was your motivation for getting into podcasting?
I think it was just kind of felt like you had something to say and kind of just put it out there in the world. I think my daughter was just born, and part of me just wanted to be a model for her. So if I'm questioning publicly, and I'm thinking for myself, and I'm practicing critical thinking, that she will grow up to do the same. And it's hard to teach a kid what to do. You can tell them a million things and tell them exactly how to live their lives. But the reality is, children model their parents. So I want to be a model for her. I think that's really what the motivation was. I never thought that so many people would listen. It never really occurred to me that that's even a possibility or reality. I think as the podcast grew and evolved, I think my perception changed. At first, it was, well, they don't want me to talk and they're telling me to shut up. So now don't tell me what to do. I want to say whatever I want. It became kind of this anti-establishment type of mindset where you can't tell me how to live my life. And I think it's changing now. It's changing to there's a lot of people that are looking to me to speak on their behalf. And now I feel kind of this responsibility to keep on going. And I think that's the most empowering part because it's not for myself, it's not just for my family, but it is. But it's really for greater good. And I feel like that's necessary. I think you need people out there that will it's not even about if I'm right or wrong, because I can be wrong. I know it's impossible for someone to be right all the time. It's impossible for you to agree with me all the time. But at my core, for sure, you can always believe that I'm doing my best effort to be as honest and genuine as possible, and I won't lie. I think that's really important. So I think I'm just trying to prove that that works, that you can live your life without being a liar, that you can tell truth, even if it's just your truth. And I think we need more of that. I think it's the idea that people have been so flexible in their views, flexible in their ideology, not speaking out when they could have, that maybe got us into the situation that we are now. And I think if people see that I'm doing it, which is just this random Asian guy from the corner of Georgia, I think a lot of people are like, hey, if he can do it, like I can do it too. And maybe one day we'll actually enact real change.
That was so sweet. I'm just like, my gosh, man, you just hit it home, Matt. That's really all we can do, right? And not be like bombarded with people, all of this pride stuff and being gross in front of kids and just almost like fetishizing like abortion and just all these things like you were talking about earlier, like the algorithm just like feeding you this stuff. It's either feeding you the stuff that you want to see or it's feeding you the stuff like they know is going to trigger you. It's like so wild. You have Peter up here. Peter, if I'm not mistaken, you're pretty into AI and whatnot. Do you have any comments on anything we've been talking about, or as far as like algorithm and then messing with your mind? Do you know how to work Twitter Spaces?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Peter.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for letting me on. I know I'm here to support Matt, and that is my position always first thing. But I've very much enjoyed this conversation, and I I just love being able to listen to the honesty and candor of my good family friend Matt, and I support him all the way. To get to your question, yes. So as a venture capitalist, we've deployed hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last couple of years into AI startups. So I've been steeped in AI for about good 2 years. Maybe no, maybe that's overly generous. Maybe about a year and a half. I've been deeply steeped in AI and technology, and so AI is definitely going to be a bigger part of the landscape of technology and social. It's absolutely going to be part and parcel of human resources. It's already being deployed there now effectively for recruiting, for metadata scraping, for understanding the whole of you as a person. And so what's fascinating is that when a child is born today in 2024, their social profile is being built poorly by their parents as their parents post baby pictures on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And all of that data is being amalgamated now. And so we live in a really interesting, fascinating world where data is truly the gold for the big corporations. And we've already seen extraordinary levels of malfeasance against the human population using technology, and AI is only going to enable that, unfortunately. So it sounds like a bleak future, but I'm hopeful that smart individuals and sophisticated individuals will create the right guardrails and constraints and legislation around it, because that's what we certainly need. Because right now we are in an arms race between four large behemoths and large language models. And because we're in an arms race, the morals and ethics and considerations and constraints and guardrails are not being put up. And so I'm seeing that firsthand. So we should not be offended in the future when an AI likeness of us, especially influencers and people that are online, we should not be offended. We gave them our data. We signed it over. And so it's going to be fascinating how that's going to ripple effect in the future, because it doesn't matter now, but it will matter when it hits your wallet. And that is what matters.
Take it away, Divisive.
I really appreciate that answer, Peter. I'm actually in the AI industry myself. I'm not in development, I'm in implementation. So I get to see the impact this is having even on small businesses right now. And the thing that I always tell people that I'm working with is like, I need you to adopt this technology, because to me, like AI is like a firearm. It's something that you can't uninvent it. And if someone else has it, the only way to protect against the bad actors is to have good actors that know how to use the technology just as good, if not better. So I really did appreciate your analysis.
Yeah, I think that's the battle. We no longer live in an information age. I made a YouTube about that. The information age is past. We are beyond that. We are in the knowledge application age. And so those who can control and manipulate technology are going to be the masters of social. They're going to be the masters of content. They're going to be the masters of media. We're already seeing that today. Like people don't realize, like the mainstream media, or what I like to call the legacy media, because they're no longer mainstream, but the legacy media has been using green screens on the news since the 80s. And so they're using it now for everything. So we don't have cable, so we haven't watched any of that stuff for decades. But I know that when I'm in an airport, I'm seeing a lot of green screens all over the place. So it's going to be those conservatives, those sophisticated with morals and ethics and grounding and understanding of the long-term implications of technology that we need to support, and we need to really rally behind, so that they can create the right technology and leverage that technology for good, because it can be used for good. Man, like there's so much out there in the third world that can be improved with artificial intelligence. Like the optimization that technology brings to problem solving is extraordinary, and it's exciting. We live in America, so we have venture capitalists like myself who are just vampires and like to bleed money out of the smartest in America. If we could export some of the good minds out to the rest of the world, we could do a lot of good. So I'm always hopeful in that regard.
What you said about your data is so important too, because even at us as podcasters, we have to start taking ownership of our data. It's really hard to get your data from these social media companies, but you can do it. But I tell people, even something as simple as printing the TXT file or the VTT file for your podcast has huge implications if you know what to do with that data. We have to start on our own end as content creators, as podcasters, as influencers, start gathering that data ourselves. Even if you don't necessarily know what to do with it today, in a year or two, there's going to be an AI application where you'll be able to feed all your VTT files in, and it will go through and tell you exactly the timestamp in your podcast where you mentioned something about AI, so you can do an AI compilation video. Like, keeping our data is something that we definitely need to get better at, as far as like trying to use this data with AI to improve our lives and make this space a little bit better for content creators. It's the only chance we have when these social media companies have been collecting all of our data for so many decades now.
Well, brother, you're talking to the right guy, because I'm trying to build freedom, what I like to call freedom tools that are decentralized, and so that we can have a true sovereignty over data, true sovereignty over our money, true sovereignty over our communications. And so I believe in a future where we will be able to toggle very easily whom we give data to, how much we give over, and how long they're able to own it for. And so that technology exists today. The problem is there's not enough smart minds building in it. And number two, it's not as economically efficient as owning everybody's data. Giving data away is not an economically efficient business proposition. And so there are going to always be great sailors who are going to take the epic voyage and try to build these amazing freedom tools out there. And we're trying to help support that with our venture capital money. So
that's a great mission. I really appreciate you coming on. We have to connect in the background. I can't wait to hear Katie's next question. She's got me in the AI space, and I was told I wouldn't have to think too hard tonight. So it's getting good now.
Yeah, what's funny is when I was sharing that flyer that I made with Matt and I removed his background and just put him onto my flyer, I got a message back saying that, what are you inviting me to? Who is this Asian AI bot? And they were like, his shoulders don't move when he talks and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's just like his individual, style when he's making shorts. So I went back and like checked your Instagram. I can see your hands moving. Am I wrong, Matt? Are you AI?
I didn't know my shoulders don't move, by the way. Now, every video I look at, all I'm going to see is my shoulders. I'm like, oh, damn, they're not moving.
Way
So
to
now
go,
you just
Katie.
put me in my own little circular logic loop, but thank you.
Well, now when I see you do a lean, I'd be like, he's leaning because of me. I'm the person that started Matt's lean.
You're the
Okay.
leader.
I was
You
moving
guys
back and
found
forth over and
me
over
out.
again.
Matt was my creation. He's AI all along. I coded him, so I apologize.
Just wait to the
Well, you did
day.
an awesome
Just
job.
wait to the day when your kids are crying because you're trying to take their AI friend offline, and they're like, "Oh, you can't destroy my AI lover. I love him or I love her." It's just a matter of time, and then you're gonna have another generation of kids going, "Oh, you can't take my AI robot offline because like he's part of the family, and we need human rights for our robots." And it's just keep. Thanks for making me more depressed, Peter.
Well, at least okay, maybe our kids will use it for good once we're gone, right? They'll be able to use all of these videos and pictures of us sticking out our lips and throwing up the peace signs and be able to like create it to where they can have a conversation with us once we're gone. Like our grandkids, our great grandkids maybe, if they still care about people. I mean, who knows? Maybe if, you got a good Christian household, they'll be like, I'm gonna bring Meemaw back to life with the AI and it'll be fine. It'll be okay. It'll be great. AI is not going to be all evil, guys. You got Peter creating freedom tools. We have some very active people making sure, exposing them, scraping our data. You got people like Divisive telling me about downloading files I didn't even know existed. All right, we're just going to move right on past that. Okay. And I see you guys requesting. I'm doing my very best. To get to the Q&A portion, if you guys have requested, just keep an eye out for when I throw you a microphone because it's not just approving and bringing you up. I had some trouble with Margot. If you guys would please share this space with your friends in the DM. It is recorded and it will live on. We are interviewing Matt Kim from the Matt Kim podcast, right? His co-host Peter is here, and we're talking about, just all the things, right? Matt's just this awesome regular guy who just happens to interview some really cool people. And today it's me and Device's turn to interview him to pick his brain a little bit. So get your questions ready. And we had the Joker, I believe. You had your hand up. You wanna go, or did we move past what you wanted to talk about?
Hi. First off, thank you for having this space, and thank you for everybody for attending, and thank you, Matt and Peter, for coming and doing this. I'm sure you guys have a ton of experience to share in terms of the podcasting world. One that I'm actually very familiar with. Just a little bit about me. I'm a podcaster myself. I do drama kind of related stuff in like the streaming space, a little different than politics and that kind of thing. But I am a live streamer and it's a little bit different. One thing that you touched on that I just wanted to go ahead and kind of pick your brain about is trust. Right. So you mentioned how things are just kind of like everyone's lying to you. The government's lying about things. You have news sources lying. I mean, just who do you trust these days, right? And one thing that I've been tackling here with the Divisive Network is, pretty much exposing the truth on a lot of the things that are going on in the world today. Those that are getting taken advantage of. And currently, our youth are following these influencers that are like degens, such as like Jack Doherty, Vitali. There's just a whole list of these influencers that are swaying these kids that are following them in really, really bad directions, to the point of even getting them to, on gambling sites and things of that sort. I just, maybe AI could be the solution to this, but what do you, as a podcaster, like, how do you trust the person that you're even speaking to when you're podcast, when you're interviewing them? Like, what are your methods? How do you do your research on those folks? Because I'm finding it like it's challenging for me because everybody has like you said, like their own truth, right? And that is like, okay, I mean, that could be their truth, but are they acting nefariously? Are they trying to, lie? Like, and a lot of people exaggerate who they are. So I would like to know your methods and how you vet these people when you do your podcasts.
So I try to stay away from people that are known podcasters because typically if they're known to do their rounds, then they have their talking points. They already know what they're going to talk about. Chances are they're going to talk about the same thing that they talked about on a previous podcast. So if I feel like that's going to happen, I try to stay away from it. Secondly, like I think monetary exchange really muddles the opportunity for honest conversation because if I collect $5,000 from you to be on my podcast, then the chance of me having an honest conversation with you is like 0%, right? You paid me to be on the show. It's actually just promotion. It's just a promotional show. So I really try to shy away from that. And more importantly, I talk to people that I really want to talk to. So if I'm interested in them, then even if I feel like they may be nefarious or not, then it gives me an opportunity to ask the questions I wanted to ask. And I really try to look at it in that terms. What do I want to know? Not what is he known for, but what am I curious about? And at least then I get the answers I want. And if it looks like it's bullshit or this is not where it's going, then I can always follow up on the next day. Like, all right, the guy was here and like, I just don't believe him. It gives you an opportunity to do that. So I think that's really what it is. As far as with the influencers that are online now, I had the most fascinating experience over the weekend. I was in this little tiny town of Moscow, Idaho. And in Moscow, Idaho, there's a it's a college town, but then this very hard right, super ultra conservative community of Christians live. And the liberal side, they are super liberal, like all kinds of letters and all kinds of piercings and literally the stereotypical extreme liberal that you can think of. And typically when you think about a city filled with those type of people, it's usually kind of a dirty city. It's usually a little bit of graffiti, maybe a little bit of homelessness, especially when the weather's nice. Any city in America, if you had that many extreme liberals, not just kind of liberal, center liberal, I'm talking like hard left. If any city with that many hard left people, typically you know what the city is going to look and smell like, right? I think we can all agree. This city was spotless. With that many extreme left people, the city was spotless. And I try to think about it, like, why? How is this possible? How is it that there's a city with so many, again, people that you assume would be dirty? How is the city so clean? And it hit me. I realized it's because the right there is so far right that the Overton window sits actually right in the center, and there's a balance. The problem is that most cities in America, the conservatives are moderately conservative, but the liberals are extremely liberal. So the Overton window sits left of center. But because there was balance and have people that were so true to their core values with zero flexibility in them, that's what created the balance. I think maybe that's what we need. That's kind of the thought I've been having for the last few days. Is that maybe this whole move to the center and being more accepting that the conservatives and people on the right have been attempting to do, maybe that's actually the problem. Maybe we should have zero flexibility in our values, zero flexibility in our core beliefs, because that actually creates balance and it pulls the Overton window closer to the center. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. Maybe people that just you just have to stick to your convictions and your beliefs.
Thank you very much. You answered my question.
Yeah, that's very true. There's some people on this platform that are like, we don't give an inch to the Democrats. Like, we're tired of seeing, like, okay, so when we say Democrats and Republicans, we're talking about the establishment party, right? And then there's all of us. We're just people, bro. But we have to be strong in our convictions because they're strong in their convictions. They have no qualms about bringing their child to a pride parade. They have no qualms about their children seeing wieners and, other parts. It's just, it's so extreme. So, you know what? I'm going to be extreme for Christ. Okay? All day. I'm just going to be extreme for Christ. And if you like it, cool. If you don't like it, that's cool too. I can have a conversation about a lot of other things. But when it comes to what our morals are, what our convictions are, you really cannot bend, right? My job is going to be to pray for you, to give you whatever information you need. Or if you don't want to talk to me, then that's your choice to not talk to me. But I cannot bend. I cannot participate in things. I just can't do it. We're not going to quote unquote win the culture war. That's real popular right now. Everybody's talking about the culture war. And it is kind of, I do think it is important. Before I go on too long, I think I'm going to pass it over to Margot because I'm sure she's got a lot to say on this. Hi, Margot. How
We
are
love
you?
Margot.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey, listen, it's a pleasure to be on the space and thank you for hosting it. I was really excited to see Matt come on. We've had the opportunity to speak on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
live. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. Peter brought up AI, and a lot of people don't understand that TikTok is basically one of the elementary AI platforms. And it's what gets kids hooked on AI because they can change the filters, they can use the green screen, they've learned to put anything up they want. So Peter, shout out to you for like bringing it up a level off the TikTok ground. Secondly, Matt, I wanted to come up here and thank you because in that live conversation you said something that really stuck with me. You said you're down on the ground and you're doing the down on the ground work. Well, I'm 3 episodes into a podcast, and I must compliment you because doing podcasting after doing TikToks and working hard to get 20,000 followers on X for my third account, podcasting is by far more difficult. I
Mm.
had I had no idea. Like, it's one thing to write your words down on an X post. It's another thing to put them out in a 3-minute video to talk to your audience about what's going on in North Carolina politics. But to take up an entire hour, Matt, do you sit and prepare every day for those? Like, what's your thought process for when you do this? Because literally going through three different mediums is really not as easy as people think.
Yeah, the short form I write down because they go on. Censorship is a real thing. It's really hard to kind of navigate community guidelines. So I write my words down intentionally because I think words matter, especially when you only have so many words to give. And I'm trying to keep it within 2 or 3 minutes. So I do write those down because I'm very specific with my words. I know that if a video ever gets deleted, it wasn't my fault. That they intentionally deleted that idea. And actually, it's a big tell because I look for which videos that they're deleting, especially TikTok. Like, oh, okay, they don't want you to know about that. I wonder why. And that makes a lot of sense. So for those, I do extra prepare. When I podcast, we pick topics that we're gonna hit. We'll say, okay, these are the 3 or 4 topics I want to make sure I hit today, and that's really it. It's really three topics, bullet point, and then just kind of go. Um, that's just how I do it. Maybe I'd be better if I prepared a little bit more, but I think the flexibility, and I've been doing a lot of it live, which I really enjoy, because when you go live, then you get an idea of the feedback from the comments, and it gives you an idea of where you're hitting, where you're not, where you should be going. Someone in the comment section may say something that kind of triggers something, or gives you a little bit of feedback, or points you in a different direction. So I really enjoy that. But as far as preparing, it's these are the 3 topics. I've kind of thought about them maybe over the last few days, and usually that's kind of good enough. I'll just go.
And Margot, it doesn't have to be an entire hour. The short form content is great. If you want to expand on something, expand. I try to not put time on what it is I'm doing. If anything, I'm trying to keep it under 60 minutes, but watch time, I mean, in a world of TikTok viewers, I mean, you really have 5 minutes, 10 if it's a really great topic. People will listen to your podcast on like fast play.
We come from different words, Katie, because in the live stream world, we're looking at like 2 hours. I think we went 2.5 hours on the Hunter Biden trial recap. And when I had the base mother who did the documentary American Groomer, shout out, that's a plug for her. Go check out her documentary. It was like 2.5 hours. It's so crazy. And it is hard because, but I was going to ask Matt this. Matt, do you think X is a platform that is better for the long form content, like the podcast style content, than other social media platforms like TikTok? Obviously.
I think I'm still torn on X, and I appreciate this. My first space, I'm really enjoying this. This is my first time kind of really experiencing the spaces side, so maybe my perception is well slightly changed. I think X is a little bit different because in order to be successful on X, you kind of have to live here. You know, that's the hardest part for me for X is that in order to really be successful here, you kind of have to live here. They expect you to post all day long. And the problem with posting all day long is that you end up posting stuff that you don't really care about. You just post for the sake of posting. And if you want to be thoughtful in your posting, actually, you can't grow. It's really hard to grow because again, the expectation is you post all day. So that's my difficulty with X is that there's a certain inherent forcing of content that a lot of people do. So people post stuff just for the sake of engagement farming or just for the sake of clicking. And they will say polarizing things because the monetization is how much argument and comments go on. And if you post something smart and people just kind of share it, you actually don't get credit for that. So I think the system and the monetization system within X actually is flawed. I think that's my biggest problem with it is that it kind of encourages bad behavior.
You're not wrong. Katie is basically my neighbor. We live in spaces. Luckily, I work from home doing a lot of work on the computer. So I just kind of sit in spaces and I see Katie and I see a lot of friends on this panel. We do live on this platform. So you're not wrong. And that was a trap. I want to go to Frantic and then we're going to go to Chavez. Go ahead, Frantic. We're getting towards the end. So I want to make sure we get through the hands. Go ahead, Frantic.
So Matt, you and I have a mutual friend, Alex Stein,
Hmm.
and and I want to ask you if you yourself think that it's possible to throw yourself down a flight of stairs with an inkwell and a tackle box, as well as most people think they can date on these spaces, as well as I want to ask you if the Overton window means that we're still living single.
Shout out to the pimple and the blimp.
Dude, that's my boy. That's my boy for life.
I don't think I understand the question.
I was asking, does Alex Stein? We have a mutual friend.
Yes.
I don't
I
think he's
don't
been
know
to
Alex Stein.
Moscow or Idaho,
I
but
don't know Alex Stein. We've never met. I know of
oh,
him.
Yeah, I know you guys run in the same circles, but he's a mutual friend, and I
Yes.
wanted to ask you, would it be in your interest to continue to be involved in spaces if we could somehow get the two of you together? And also, the question is, I completely lost my voice because I'm nervous as hell. Uh, do you think that most of those women that you were describing previously, do you think they fell down an inkwell with a tackle box? Like, do you think they fell out of a flight of stairs? Or like, what happened to these women to make them so angry at the world that they feel like our embrace of things that are common and valuable don't
I,
consider to be important?
I I'm gonna be honest. I blame parents for everything. I think it's our responsibility as parents to raise our children right. And if you spend the time with your children, if you're solid, strong models for your children, that if you show them conservative values and family values from a young age and you make it part of their life, then the chance of them going astray is actually very low. It's because of so much flexibility and participation trophies and being like, well, we want to be loving and accepting, but they can do whatever they want. I think the lack of rules really created the situation. I think I think it's a generation above us or a generation above me, and their fault is a generation above them. I think it trickles down all the way. So I don't blame the kids. I really don't. I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the parents that should have taught them better.
Furthermore, one more question. Sorry to interrupt. Uh, do you think that a lot of people are asking you questions. I'm just going to make a statement. I think it's really important that as a parent that we look at our kids and we understand that, like, for the first time ever in the history of the world, in the last 3 years, that we've been faced with a situation where, for the first time in the first world history, that we have a situation where the grandparents are being put before the children. Do you think that's a long term like thing that could ever happen again? Because I've been encouraging everybody I know to sit around and like be like, hey, we should make this a part of our will. We should make this a part of our living will. We should make this a part of our life that we discuss what happened over the last 3 years so the next generation doesn't forget. Do you think it's a healthy way to approach things?
I think families just need to have more conversation. I think the idea that I know I go to a lot of people's houses and we've been at fault at this too, where when you eat, the adults eat at one table and the children eat at the other table. I think that's a mistake. I think they should be eating together. When you go to church, the adults go to adult service and the children's go to children's class. I think that's a mistake. I think they should be worshiping together. I think the separation saying, hey, adult matters are for adults and children's matters are for children. I think that creates a disconnect. I think you're not teaching the children to be adults from a young age. And because when they become adults, they get all this responsibility, all these opportunities, all these different things come to them, and all these new ideas. They don't know where to look and they go astray. Again, I think it really has to do with parenting. You have to include your children in your daily life, be active parents. And I think that's the biggest problem. I think if we were better parents, I think if our parents were better parents and their parents were better parents, maybe we would have done a better job with the technology that we're given.
And one
Thank
last
you.
question
Oh,
while I have your time, because I'm going to just drop the mic and give it to someone else in a second. Do you think that as Americans, as parents, as churchgoers, as Christians, is there anything else more we can do to help our children figure out the world that they're walking into? Because I think that they are headed for a lot of nonsense that they're not prepared for. I look at my son who's 11 and I'm just like, oh man, I don't even want him to become a teenager. I'm terrified of
Hmm.
that. How can we prepare our kids for the knowledge of the crazy world that we live in? And how do we like prep them for what's coming?
So when I was in Idaho, I told you there this these group of they call them these Christian nationalists. They're extremely hard right. They are very family oriented, very core value type of people. And every Saturday they do a Sabbath dinner. The entire family gets together, family, extended family, friends, and maybe any guests that went come in from out of town. Every Saturday they sit down, everyone sits down together. They all do dinner. And the idea is that from Saturday, they're preparing for Sunday church the next day. They're preparing their minds, they're preparing their hearts. And I thought that was a beautiful thing because they stay together. And every single Saturday, no matter what, they get together for dinner. It's not, hey, it's Saturday night, um, we're gonna leave the kids with the babysitter and we're gonna go to the bar. We're gonna go out, we're gonna have our family night and we're gonna leave the kids at home. Every Saturday night, no matter what happens, they do Saturday supper together. And I think little things like that, I think it works because every single child I saw there, and I'm talking the dinner I went to, 40 people, four generations in one family, all there. All the children were respectful, very smart, well spoken. They all came, shook my hand, said hello, nice to meet you. Little things that we take for granted, but they all do it. They're all standing tall, not leaning to the side. Things that maybe we all wish our children did. You have four generations of them doing it. I'm like, oh, this. People call, these people kind of crazy, but it works. And it started to make a lot of sense to me. And actually, something I think I'm going to start implementing into my life is that Saturday night, no matter what, it's family dinner. And we're going to do it every Saturday, no matter what. And if I start with my daughter, who's 2 years old, by the time she's 13, she's not going to know anything else. Saturday night is family night. And I think that's a really good practice to have.
Do you think this is
Great
spiritual
answer. Oh,
warfare?
I mean, we're always in spiritual warfare. Everything is spiritual warfare. And the best we can do is make the best decisions given best decisions with the opportunities we have. And if we make our decisions based on love, faith, God, I think we that's all we can expect ourselves to do. But we have to do it. And sometimes making the right decision means we have to make selfless sacrifice, meaning make the decisions that are inconvenient for ourselves. Because sometimes the easy way out is not to do Sabbath dinner. Sometimes the easy way out is to let your kid watch TV while eating dinner. That's the easy way out. And sometimes it makes sense. Oh, she's a little tired today and she's cranky, so I'm just going to have him watch TV while at dinner. But you know in your heart that's not the best idea. You know the better thing to do is have a conversation and use that as a teaching moment. And learn. And even if they don't want to be there, they learn to be disciplined and sit in a situation that maybe they're not so comfortable, which people have to learn to do also. So sometimes it's all about ourselves and the willingness to have selfless sacrifice. That's my take.
great answer, Matt. All right, go ahead, Chavez, and then we're gonna go to Jeff, and then we'll move on.
Actually, before you go to Chavez, I want to jump in there really quickly and tell Matt that that was a really excellent point. I did an interview with someone who is a homemaker, I guess you call it trad wife type situation, right? And she's raising her kids up, to and just in faith and all of these wonderful things. And what she told me was a little bit eye opening, and it's a little bit embarrassing. The fact that, I have two young kids and I never thought about this is that our life is at
Mm,
home. It's not all of the things we do outside of the house. It's not who's online. It's not who follows you or who wants to, come on your podcast or any of these other things. Like that is that all of those things are work and they can be relevant. But when you really focus in and realize that your life is at home, and you can learn to, if you just take that in, you can learn to just kind of cut off some of the distractions and really be present. I mean, man, it was eye opening just saying that. Like, I thought about that for probably a month, just consistently thinking about how and what and where and why and how could I do better. And it's something I'm always striving for. I'm not embarrassed to say, like, you know what, sometimes I do fail. Sometimes the phone does take precedent over what it is going on in my house. But man, we have to learn to shut it off. And by being that example, but like you said, doing the family dinner, whatever it is you want to implement, it's our responsibility to change how the household is. And it's our responsibility to to really raise the children with you said everything being separate for kids and adults. That is a big problem, but that is just one more thing. That's a big lie. That's propaganda. Just like they say, don't talk about religion, don't talk
mm.
about politics. Kids sit over here. All of those things are things that we just need to be examining and going, okay, well, it's not enough to be upset about it. I don't have to worry about anybody else stop doing those things. I need to make sure that I'm going to stop doing those things because my kids need me. So I just wanted to say that really quickly before we turned it to, would you say his name is Chavez?
Yeah, we got Chavez Flexington. Go ahead, Chavez. Question for Matt. We're gonna finish up these hands, and then we're gonna give our final statements. Go ahead, Chavez.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on here, Matt. I want to respect everybody's time. I know we had a lot of ground to cover, and just listening and sitting back and well, I don't really say observing because I'm not watching necessarily, but just listening. It's very, very insightful. It's really, really awesome. A lot of this stuff resonates with me as a man that I try to, teach and train my kids. Unfortunately, to be soldiers in this day and age, and
Mm.
I hate to sound so hostile, but we have to. We absolutely have to. Principles, morals, and values. You got to stand on something. You're going to fall for anything, right? So I want you to just take that as encouragement, man. Just keep doing your thing. I'm digging more and more into your podcast. I absolutely love what you're doing. But my main question, I mean, man, I could ask you questions for hours, but again, I want to respect everybody's time. But my main question, especially more on a spiritual sense, in this day and age, I don't look at politics as left and right or center. To be honest with you, I look at it in terms of up and down,
Mm.
meaning heaven and hell. I don't really care about titles. I don't care about categories. I don't. I mean, I tell you my beliefs, and you put me in whatever category you want to. That's up to you. That's on you. That's not me, right? So I'm very black and white. I don't really believe in gray. I do like the a comment you made essentially about, I mean, you didn't actually say this, but essentially like we need to bring back those rules and those standards and those values and just and execute on them instead of the, kind of passive weak approach on things. I believe that the best way to conduct yourself with good character is to be specific and be precise, be a man of your word and whatnot. So I love that, man. I just want to take that as all encouragement. Everything you're saying is exactly what I'm trying to implement in my own personal life with my family as well. So keep doing that. My question is this. I did watch your podcast with Douglas Wilson. I absolutely adore that man. He's awesome. I hope one day I get a chance to meet him. Um, before Jesus ascended into heaven, he gave us one simple command, and he said, just love one another, right? Love one another. My question is, where you are with your spiritual beliefs and spirituality. I mean, I'm a very, very candid, direct individual. Um, as far as I can tell, it seems like you're a Christian, but I don't want to assume. But I want to ask, first of all, if you are one, and if you aren't, then you can possibly take this statement and this verse and apply it anyway. But Jesus, before he sent it, he said, "Love one another." My question is this: what does that mean to you, and how do you implement that exactly in your own personal life, if you believe that?
So I am Christian. I think I've been, as most do, we struggle with our faith. I think it's something that I've been working on more. I think I've been coming around a little bit more, especially since the podcast comes. So before I did the podcast, religion, faith, something that I never really thought about. Actually, I hadn't thought much about. And as things grow, people will say, well, the obvious answer is it's because of God. And I'd say, well, that's kind of a really crap answer because that doesn't really mean much. And then I got to sit down and have conversations with different people. You kind of see the God's plan start to come together, which is always encouraging, especially when you get to see a glimpse of what that possibly is. We never fully understand, but the understanding that there is a plan, I find actually very encouraging. I've also been kind of going down this kick, trying to figure out this whole idea of predestination, especially after speaking to Pastor Doug, the idea that God has already written your story, and it's a series of free will choices that takes you to those moments. That's something that I've been thinking about for the last 3 days nonstop. By the way, I think as far as love one another, I think in order to love one another, you just have. It's about trying to understand the other side, be empathetic to the other side, knowing that not everyone is blessed the same. There is variance in how much people are blessed. That's the reality of the world. I think I'm coming to terms with that also. I think it's our job, once you do know, to do your best to show them that there is a better way. I don't think everyone needs to be an evangelist. I don't think that's everyone's calling. I do think that every person should try to live their best life and be an example. And if you're living a good, solid life, and whoever is not on the path, whenever they get into trouble, when they reach out for help, because you are on the right path, and they will reach out for help at that moment, I think that's really a good opportunity to help them explore and help them understand. And if you've been the person of respect in their life, they eventually will come to you. That's kind of how I try to live my life, live the best version of myself, be truthful and honest at all times, and hopefully when someone needs me, I can be there for them. So I think that's always the idea of loving one another. I don't think I walk around and go, I love everyone. And I'm definitely at fault for mockery and ridicule. It's something that it's really cheap and easy to do, and I do it often. Something that I'm not overly proud of after I do it, but it's so easy and it's kind of fun, and something I struggle with on a daily basis. But I try not to, and I'm very conscious of that. Because I think the people that are on their side, some of them, they just even haven't had the opportunity to learn, and I think of that too. What if you've never been introduced to greater ideas and concepts? How can I be mad at you for not knowing them if you've never had the opportunity to learn them? And I'm never going to be able to teach or have a discussion with someone about it if all I do is, as soon as I meet them, I ridicule them. So I'm trying to be more aware of that, trying to be more understanding, accepting, realizing that, again, not everyone has been blessed the same.
That was a great answer, Matt. Thank you for that. Joe Biden does make it hard, though. Okay.
He's testing my patience.
Yeah, yeah. There's someone on stage, Kevin Tony. He's the host of the Uncommon Sense podcast, and I know we have hands up, but this is really more of his realm. I had a couple of conversations with him about, just praying for our nation and asking about like praying for the president, and he gave me a really good answer. It's just like, you can't pray and not mean it. God will know, but just praying for the leadership was some really great advice. Kevin, say hello. How are you, Kevin? Good to see you.
I'm great. Good evening, everybody. First of all, Katie, shout out to you for doing this. And it just, Katie's been encouraging me to get involved in spaces, and I've stayed away from it because when I get into a space, based on what the topic is, a lot of times it just feels like cringy and icky. So I kind of stay away from it. But the vibe in this space is just like it's right up my alley. So just kind of give me some hope that maybe there is some decent spaces out there where, it's not a lot of posers and people just trying to have these sexy viral moments within the space. So this is great. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to throw a couple things out because I've been listening. Matt, I'm a fan. I know you don't know me, but I have listened to your podcast, and when I heard that you were doing this with Katie, I was like super hyped for her. You know, uh, and you said something that everybody who's given some input has said some things that have kind of solidified some of the feelings that I have had regarding podcasting. And Katie and I were just talking about this a couple of nights ago, the frustrations of trying to maintain a podcast and keep it going. And it's encouraging to hear that, we're not alone, where people are, having these same questions and these internal struggles with trying to maintain the integrity of having an honest podcast and making it a platform where you can be, open and honest and not have to, be fake and phony, as Matt kind of alluded to, where if you pay somebody to come on your podcast, it's automatically they're not going to be genuine. And that's something, a concept that I hadn't considered before, but it's spot on. There's a stat that I heard when I first started doing my podcast that the average podcaster quits after the fourth episode because they see how much work goes into it. And when I first started my show, I was determined to overcome that stat.
Mm.
And I just recently crossed the 100 episode threshold. And when I look back, thank you. When I look back, and Katie has been a part of that journey, a big part of that journey. So it can be done. You can be genuine, you can be authentic. And I have learned to not look at the numbers or look at what somebody else is doing in terms of their audience, because it's easy to get caught up in that and think that maybe I'm doing something wrong. So um I'm encouraged by everybody that's on this space. Maybe I might start getting into some more spaces. In terms of the prayer thing, Chavez, you said something great where you talked about the questions that you ask in terms of the how we should be having the balance between our faith and how public we're being outwardly. And Matt, you, to your point, you were speaking my language when you talked about the adults and the kids should be together in church and in home. I'm 45 years old. I'm come from the old school. I grew up at a time where we had Sunday school, but there was no children's church.
Mm.
So I'm used to having the kids in service with me. And it feels weird when I go to church and I'm automatically being ushered to take my kids. Well, the children's church is this way. And I'm like, what? But the service is over here. And they're like, children's church is this way. And I'm like, no, that's not how I grew up. Because honestly, a lot of these churches, when you put these kids in children's church, it's just video games and Nerf guns. And they're not really, a lot of them are not really learning the word. They just do like a motivational scripture and then that's it. We have to bring the kids back together to learn with the adults, because it worked out pretty good for me. And it worked out for most of the adults that I know. So I'm just encouraged. I've been listening to a lot of people in here that I wasn't familiar with. I followed you all. Margo, I followed you. You're in NC. I'm in Charlotte. I'm looking forward to talking to you about some GOP politics stuff. So I'm just glad to be a part of the space. Katie, rock on, because you are a star. Shout out to everybody that's listening. So I'll step down here.
I just want to touch on that real quickly. I think the idea of monetization and big monetization of podcasts is really the psyop. It makes you feel like you have to have a million listeners to make money. But the reality is if 100 people or 1,000 people listen to you, that's a lot of damn people.
You're right.
And we get so jaded with the idea that there's these big podcasts out there and they're living these huge lavish lifestyles, not realizing that most of it is manufactured. And then we're like, well, we're not there, so we must be doing something wrong. The reality is, if 1,000 people listen to you, or 500 people listen to you, or 100 people listen to you, that's a lot of damn people that you're touching their hearts with.
That's
So
facts.
don't get caught up in the numbers. Don't get caught up in the fact that there are these mega podcasts out there, because most of it is a part of a media machine. Don't worry about them. Those guys are outliers. They play a different game. The reality is, if you're out there, you've done 100 episodes, think about how many people's lives you've changed. I encourage you to keep going. I think it's amazing. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, don't get caught up in the big numbers. That's what I think.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up, Kevin. And you guys, this is a recorded space. If you want to share it out, definitely follow everybody that you resonate with. I appreciate you guys being here, and especially my co-host Divisive and Matt and Peter. We have Lou with her hand up. Lou, how are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. KT, Divisive, thank you so much for bringing Matt in. Matt, it's so great to have you in a space. We have a couple of mutuals, Dilly Teen,
Mm.
Beardo. And so how do I know Matt? I know Matt from the great DeSantis incident when you guys got kicked out. And yeah. So I think it's wonderful that you came to spaces. A lot of people don't come into spaces, and then the first time that they do, and I'm in a lot of spaces. I co-host a pirate radio Shell Shocked. It's on Thursday nights 8 p.m. My little plug, and then we also do a podcast on Friday nights Pirate Radio, 11 p.m. Eastern time on everything. And you're right. People come into spaces they've never been in spaces, then they start talking to people, and they're like, "This is cool." And then it's like, oh, something just happened. Let me jump in and get the feel of the people. And so, we might see you around a little more often. I have a feeling. I love the fact that you talk about your faith. I love the fact that you have had the amazing opportunity that you have to get some of the most stellar guests on your podcast. And I'm just wondering, is there anything that you have thought of that you look back and you went, that was the decision that I made? Because we're all kind of trying to do podcasts, and Margot got me to go over to the TikToks, and I was on the TikToks before Donald Trump, thank you very much. And we're trying to get out there and get the message, because this battle that we're in right now, I think, is on multiple fronts, right? It's not just your Facebook group, it's not just your ex followers. You got to be on TikTok, you got to have it out there. So was there one thing that made you do this that kind of just clicked?
I think the number one thing that people are really searching for, especially now, is that people that they feel are honest and genuine. If they feel like you're comfortable with who you are, feel comfortable with that you genuinely believe what you're saying, then people are more likely to follow you and more likely to share you. And it's the share. The power of the share is actually the most important thing. Because it's like if you're trying to sell someone something, I'm looking for a new cabinet, and I look on Google and I find a guy, I may just get a quote. If a friend of mine says, "Hey, I know a good cabinet guy, and you should really look to him," the chance of that guy being the guy that you use for your cabinets is like 70%, right? So the power of the share is the most important thing. So if there's anyone in this space that, like, I really like this person talking, or I like Katie, or I like the vice or I like Lou, really what you need to do is you need to tell your friend and not just share it, because X makes it so easy to just repost. The repost doesn't do much. DM it to your friend. That means so much more, because that's telling your friend, I really like them. And because of that warm transfer, then they're more likely to watch you and follow you. That's how I got into pretty much every single opportunity I got. I've never reached out to anyone first. Somebody that watched me shared it with them, and they happened to be someone really famous. That's how I got it from pretty much everybody, is that one of their friends sent it to them. So that's the only thing that I think actually works. You could sit there and DM every single major account all day long. Chance of them reaching out to you is like zero. It's like cold calling. It doesn't work. But if a friend sends it and they say, "Hey, check out Lou. Check out what she's doing," it means so much more. So encourage your following, encourage people that follow you to share your content, not just by hitting that repost, but send it to one or two people every time that you really think would appreciate this, because you never know where that goes.
And I will agree with you, because I actually do kind of on a side help get guests for another podcast of another friend of ours. And it is true, it is networking, and it's also knowing who the right people are, to reach out to them or to DM them, etc. And then the other thing that I wanted to say really quickly, because when you said the DM and you said something about the repost on Twitter, I want to tell you that I appreciate your honesty in what goes on in podcasts, what's going on in Twitter, the monetization, the the kind of the fakeness of it, because a lot of people are thinking, oh, this person's got to be really good because they've got
Mm,
300,000 followers. But what they've got is they've got a network behind them,
mm.
or they're maybe got bots and things like that. And so a lot of times people get really kind of down on themselves, and they go, oh, I only got 4 likes, which today now we don't even know who the 4 likes were. Like, if you guys looked at something of mine, you're never going to know who liked it, which sucks. But it might have 4 likes or 5 likes, but it's really good. And what I'm finding, Matt, and you tell me if this is happening to you, what I'm finding is maybe you find a snippet of a video or a video of your podcast, and the next thing you know, one of these talking heads out there, or one of these social media influencers, has ripped your stuff and is now sending it out and getting monetized on it. Have you seen a lot of that happening lately?
Yeah, I mean, my clips get shared on all types of podcasts, all types of YouTube. News organizations will use it as kind of a central talking point to start discussion, etc. I actually love it. I encourage it. Actually, every single video I put on any platform, I make it downloadable because I think the message is more important. And I think that if you put it out into the world, people will eventually find you back. So I actually encourage people to download my stuff, cut it up, rip it, put it wherever you want. Because the numbers are really vanity numbers. If the numbers are going out there, you actually are going to get the recognition. You can get people are going to come find you. If they see your content 1 or 2 or 3 times, they're like, okay, I wonder where the original source is. People know how to use the internet. They'll come find you if they really want to find you. So I put it out there. I have no problem. Everything again is downloadable. Use it, cut it, use it in a podcast, use it in news, use it on your own page, re-edit it. Actually, that's why I don't use B-roll, because some people will put their own videos on top and stuff on top of it. No problem. Actually, it doesn't bother me one bit. Actually, I encourage it.
You hear that, Kamala Harris? We know how to use the internet, okay? No, that was a great question, Lou, and great answer, Matt. I appreciate that. We have Jeff is next. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Hey, good evening, guys. KT, Dave, the Divisive, and Lou, and Margot. Thanks for you guys having me up this evening. And Matt was talking about character and the saying that tell the truth. If you can't tell the truth, don't lie. And that was I've heard it from Matt. My other guy that I trust a pretty good bit, Tucker Carlson, said it. Jordan Peterson said it. But I've always liked Matt ever since he was in North Dakota. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. You were out there to do some interviewing for Ron DeSantis.
Hmm.
And it was -10 degrees, and they kicked you out of the not the restaurant, but the place across the street from the restaurant. And then they wouldn't let you eat in the restaurant because I believe it was for Ron DeSantis. And then you shortly thereafter that were hanging out with President-elect Donald Trump. And, he opened his arms. I guess they opened their arms to you. And that to me meant a lot because you didn't lose your cool. You stayed calm, cool, and collected. And I've always liked you and everything that you have said on all of your podcasts. And I have a lot of respect for you, Matt. I put you up there with the tops. Joe, Tucker, Elon, or not, excuse me, the guy out
And
of
Katie,
Austin.
and Divisive.
Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to tell you, thank you for all you do. And the truth will set us free. And the truth is what people need to hear. And I did want to ask Peter about AI with the Apple and the Google merger and what his thought was on that. And thank you, Matt. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming up.
I'll give you a really simple answer. It's yet to be seen how implementation will be done in both Apple and Microsoft. I would assume that with Microsoft's recent announcement of their AI tracking on desktops and laptops, that's basically watching everything you're doing and recording everything you're doing. There's a toggle that they have said that it's private. Now, whether that's true or not is yet to be seen. And so I would think that the first line of defense is it will be optional and you'll be able to subscribe to it or not. I think the deeper consideration is who has their hands in the cookie jar. And so hopefully we'll have some great investigative journalists who will find that out.
Thank you very much for that answer. I was also asking possibly about the Eric Prince telephone that doesn't access Google or any mining companies that mine data from his phone at the X Sky for Blackwater. Did you have anything on that?
Yes, actually, that crossed my desk. I think that's one of several great options that you can find online that are not subscribed to the core Apple or Android operating systems. I think they're not cheap, but there are several options out there so that you can own a phone that's not connected to any of their large data centers.
Again, Matt, thank you for all you do for everybody. We really appreciate you guys, and thank you, KT and Divisive and everybody for letting me up and speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a great question. I'm going to send it over to Robbie. Robbie, go ahead.
Yo, what's good? KT, homegirl, thanks for bringing me up. It's good to see you too, Divisive. Appreciate your work. Thanks for allowing us to be here to talk with Matt. It's really good to have you too, brother. I just had a couple quick questions. One, radio broadcasting, entertainment, acting. That's my first love. I've done it for over 10 years. We kindred spirits. So congratulations on all the success that you've had in the industry. So my first question would be, I've worked in Hollywood. I know the monster that is. I've seen the darkness of it. How are you prepared to face that monster? Because as you know, when I was coming up, a lot of cats would tell me, you know, the more famous you get, the bigger the dragon is going to be. And so how are you prepared to face that type of I would say challenge, right? You know, it's a good challenge, but it is still a difficult one. And how will you balance that with family life, with your own values and your morals? Because that this industry tends to want you to break those morals and values the more you grow within it. And then my second question would be, how do you take care of your instrument, your voice? What are some of the things that you do to maintain the quality and the integrity of your vocal cords? Because I know you know we speak a lot and talk a lot, and that can put a strain on your instruments. And what are some of the cool things that you do to make sure that you know give that proper rest and strength? Thanks for letting me come on. Appreciate you guys.
Well, that's definitely a question I've never gotten before because I don't think I do anything. Maybe that's why my voice kind of raspy because I never rested, you know. So that I don't have the best answer for that. I don't do anything. Drink warm tea. I drink a lot of coffee. So definitely don't take my advice there. As far as what would happen if things got bigger and you know worrying about going down the slippery slope of things like Hollywood, I don't really worry about it because what I do know is that they don't come at you at one time big. They come at you incrementally. So they're saying, hey, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you take this small, tiny step? Maybe we'll work out a deal. Maybe we'll pay you a little bit of something. Maybe you just say this. It's something that you already agree with. I've gotten plenty of those offers. And I just say no off the bat to all of it. And maybe that's the dumbest thing because eventually, maybe one day I want to make money, but I do it because I really enjoy it. I do it because I care. And I think that if I were to say yes to one propagandist offer, even if it's a small one, even if it's something that I agree with, that it's just going to incrementally inch me in to the further, deeper down the road, deeper into the hole. So I think that's really why I feel comfortable because I've said no to literally every opportunity so far. And if I just say no and that's my standard answer, then actually they're not going to come get you because again, they come at you big, but no one ever comes with a big offer in the beginning. You've incrementally said yes over and over and over again before the big one comes. So I don't know. I just say no. I just don't want to do anything propagandist. I don't. I've been offered a lot of money many times to have a certain stance on certain opinions, and I just won't do it because I know even if it's something that I agree with, that if I do it one time, it's over. And I think as long as I stay true to that, I think I'll be okay. You know, it makes it a little more difficult because there's a lot of money on the table that you just kind of passing up. And I think I'm in a place where if I start taking a lot of the propagandist money, like I'd probably make a pretty decent living doing it. But I just don't want to because then I'm going to hate what I'm doing. It's just a matter of time before you hate it, and then you're not going to want to do it anymore anyway. In which case, like, what was the point? So I have no problem going the long road. I have no problem going the road less traveled. I'll just take my time. I'm not in a hurry.
So you heard it here first. Matt is not part of the Illuminati and he's not delusional. He doesn't think that he's going to make it into the CIA of Hollywood and change the CIA that has been there since the beginning because that's who created Hollywood.
Mm.
You heard it here first, folks. Okay. And yeah, just so you guys know, you can subscribe to Matt. He's got free thinkers. I don't know if there's an S on there or not, but he's got a little army of people, a big army of people. Don't call his army little. Sorry. Um, yeah, and plenty of ways to support him through merch and subscribing to his channel. And I definitely encourage anybody who is able to do that. Definitely do what you can. Lynn's Piper Loomis. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I personally think she's fantastic, just like everybody else up here on my panel. If you get rotated out, no hard feelings, guys. We're just trying to wrap up for Matt with finishing through the hands. Lynn's is back, so I'll just take a brief pause to see if we can get her since she was next, and we're gonna go to Laura. Hey, Lynn. Yeah, coming in good. How are you?
Good. Hey, thanks for doing this. I just wanted to say, really quick, as a person who's overcome, some human trafficking and stuff, it's really awesome, Matt and KT, to hear you guys have these spaces because a lot of times people are going after like all the grim and dark stuff, and the answer is the light because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. So I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you. I honor you guys, and I'm so thankful for you guys being positive and pulling things out like that. So thank you so much. That's all I had.
Thank you, Linz.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lynn's is amazing. Peter is leaving. He said he's got to hit the hay, which we're rounding out to that time anyways. Bye, Peter. Thanks for joining us. And I hope to see you again very soon. And Laura, you're up next. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hi guys, I'm doing great. Sorry about the even more raspy voice. We were talking about raspy before, but I just got over a sickness. Anyways, thanks for having me up. I guess I'm following the last girl that was up here, Lynn's, and I'm saying thank you to you guys. I'm so happy to hear you bring up your faith. To me, that's so important. Like, and I know Lou probably knows a lot because I'm in a lot of different spaces that she talks things. I just love her. But anyways, I always bring up the fact that a house divided falls, and that's what I'm seeing with our country as a whole. So I really think that we should focus a lot on Jesus and on God and look to him for guidance, especially during these days. Because I mean, look what's happening to our world and our kids and everything. And actually, he's the only one that's going to save it. Donald Trump will come second, but he's the one that's going to actually save it. But I really appreciate what you said, Matt, and I have a lot of encouragement from you and Kit, and actually all of you in here that I can see that I've heard before. So I guess that's just pretty much it. I'm really really happy about that, and I'm just glad that you guys let me speak. That's pretty much it. So God bless everybody. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you,
I
Laura.
think the idea that we think politics will save America is a logical fallacy because we've seen that politics doesn't save anything, right? The problem with, and although I appreciate America first, I think the reality is that it should be God first, family first, America first. I think that's the order that it should go. I think it's the thinking that America first and politicians will save our society. I think that may be actually a part of the problem, right? Because we know now that doesn't matter who's in charge, they're not going to fix the country. They may slow down the falling apart of society. One person slows it down a little bit more than the other. One person amplifies it more than the other. But the reality is that society's been going in a bad direction and no one stopped it. So I think what we really need to do is bring God back into discussion. I think we need more Christian, strong, moral, valued leaders at top. We need to focus on family, expanding our family, spending more time with our family, showing that our family is actually more important than our jobs and society around us, because that's true. And then once we kind of restructure our priorities in this country, I think that's when we go to healing. That's when we go back to embetterment of society. I think the fact, again, thinking that politicians will save us, it's a huge logical fallacy.
I agree.
Amen to
I
that.
agree completely, Matt. That's one of the things I always talk about. Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture, and we've got some very serious cultural problems right now. I think, Katie, was it Ron next? I think it's Ron.
Yeah,
Go
Ron.
ahead, Ron.
Okay. Hey, I want to say thanks to you guys. I got invited over here. I got invited in a little bit late. I wish I would have got invited a little bit sooner. I think I don't know. I think it was Miss Kimmy that shot me the invite, but can't be sure about that. But I go to a lot of her groups, and she always pushes sharing the group out. So the first thing I do when I get into a group, when I agree with what the group is doing, is I share it out. And back to that personal. Sending out the personal request, because I was talking with a gal named Sandra, and I really like Sandra a lot. She means a lot to me in my heart, and I want to just tell her that I love her, because I do. But I sent a special request out to her, and she jumped in and she joined. So that has a lot to do with it. Getting back to the Christianity thing, for myself, I think I've been running down the wrong road, going in the wrong direction just for so long. It's just breaking my heart and tearing me up. And I just kind of, feel God not giving up on me and calling me back and telling me it's just time to come home. And I know there's a lot of people on this site here, and I know the power of prayer. So if you guys will all just keep, Ron in your prayers a little bit, help me on my Christianity, help me on my walk as I find my way back home. That'd be super terrific. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and land the plane and let somebody else have the time. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you,
The
Ron.
understand
And thank you for
the
sharing.
understanding of where you are, that's the 90%. You're almost there. That last 10%, that's the faith part. And once you can realize that you're not going to get pushed past that 90% on your own, that God is not going to pull you past that 90%, that last 10% is the leap of faith. That I don't know what I don't know. I have no explanation for it. I can't figure it out. No one's going to tell me what it is, but I just got to blindly comply and realize that that's what's there. That's the faith part. So I encourage you, you're there. You're at the 90%. There's no coming back. You're there. All you got to do is take that final leap.
I find a lot of people, like I've been in Bible studies and I talk about, being faithful quite a lot. I find that a lot of resistance that we have is because we think as God, as our father, which he is, he's the most awesome father, right? And sometimes we confuse that with earthly uh worldly views on I've done so much that if I turn to God, he's so disappointed in me for living this way. What I want you to know is that you also make God proud. Every step that you take in the right direction, cultivating that relationship with him and doing great things for people, being loving, being selfless, all of those things do bring God happiness and joy, and he is proud of us as well. And his disappointment is not everlasting, because you can repent, you can ask for forgiveness, and you can go to him about anything. Just as much as those thoughts are in your head, all you have to do is start the conversation with him. Whether it's dear God or Heavenly Father, or however it is that you choose to address him, or Jesus, and start talking with him. It doesn't have to be this formal prayer. There's a lot of propaganda in our mind about how prayer should be and how that relationship should be. And that's really just not the case. Just think about your dad. You can go to him, or that most perfect father that you can go to him. The father maybe you never had. You can go to him. He is everything for you, and you are everything to him. And so we have to just breaking that mental barrier is the hardest part, whether it's talking with God, whether it's getting started on working out or getting started on eating right. All of those things are hard. And there's a lot of resistance in ourselves to not acknowledge that it is difficult. But if you just do one thing, it can lead to many, many steps. And I just wanted to definitely encourage you, Ron, to open up and start that conversation, be it through God, or if you pray to Jesus, or however it is that you choose to address him. When you can call him anything, a rose by any other name is still a rose, right? He knows that you're talking to him. So I really do hope that helps, and I will keep you in my prayers, Ron. Thank you for
Well,
that.
thank you very much. And I do want to say that, God Almighty, he's the only dad I've ever had. I don't know what it's like to have an earthly dad. I've never had that. I don't know that experience. That kind of makes, I don't know. I got a son and I've always been there and, made sure that he knows that I love him. And I think that me never having an earthly dad has a lot to do with how I stuck it out with him in his life, even though his mother and I got divorced when he was like 6 years old. And I ended up getting sole custody of him and his little sister. And matter of fact, I'm moving down to where my daughter lives in Killeen, Texas here. And I'm making that move starting tomorrow so that I can be close with her. But definitely, I've been a Christian since I was 5 years old, but just for too long now, I feel that I've been working so hard and so long and for all the wrong things. And I just need to find my way back home. And that's where my heart lies.
You can do it, Ron. Matt, any thoughts?
Qualitative and quantitative time. It's not just the amount of time you spend with your children, but the quality of time. And some people will say, well, as long as you're spending quality time, the amount of time doesn't matter. I disagree. I think you want to spend as much time, and during the time that you spend it attentive, right? It's so easy to spend time with your kids and like both watch TV together. Um, I think you really, once you start spending time with them, especially because you're moving closer to your daughter now, and you start getting involved in her daily life and you start having conversations, once the center of your life moves toward your children, realizing that that's your best opportunity to create future generations, I think your shift and your trust in God will come with it. I really do. So, with the move going there, I would say focus on your children, give them everything you have, give them all your time, give them all your love, and you'll understand what that love that you're missing maybe from your father, what that is like, because you'll feel that too.
Oh, that's 100%. I want to throw it to Lou. She had her hand up, it went down. And then also, we the media. You've been up here for a while and you haven't put your hand up. So we'll go, Lou, we the media. And unfortunately, guys, we're going to just, well, not unfortunately, right? Oh my gosh, but fortunate enough to have this much of Matt's time. And we don't want to hold him too much longer. We want to make some closing thoughts and wrap it up for Matt so he can go and enjoy the rest of his night. Lou, did you have something else?
I when there was kind of just a lull, I was thinking, Matt, what was your favorite podcast that you've done? Like, what is your favorite guest, or podcast or topic that you've covered?
Hmm. I really like the one that we just did with Doug Wilson. I thought that was really eye opening. I think just because it's a story of kind of coming full circle, where I was born to somehow being associated with him and getting some of his insight on questions and matters that I really was thinking about. So it was kind of a selfish podcast interview because I asked him questions that were actually pertinent to my life. And I think those are the best ones, at least for me. So that's the one I would think is the best. Um, I like I like conversations where I feel like I get value, because if I'm not going to get value, then why am I doing it? I'm not trying to just create entertainment. I would like to genuinely learn. So, and I want things that are going to make me better and help improve the way I think about the world and see the world and maybe understand myself. So that's my favorite one, the most recent one we did.
That's awesome. And KT, I went ahead and threw that up in we call it the Nest Mat or the Jumbotron, depending on who you're talking to. But that way everybody can see it and be able to bookmark it for you.
Amazing.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that podcast as well. I thought it was really special, really something. And you can tell really for all of your podcasts. I did want to ask a little bit
Mm.
different, right? About Andrew
Mm.
Tate. I mean, you made this trip to see him, and man, he's just so funny.
Yeah.
And I know you explained the trip, but like, really, what is the energy like? Like, what are you thinking like before you meet Andrew Tate? Do you feel like your energy gets up? Do you get a little bit nervous for situations like that,
I,
or did you know what to expect from
Yeah,
him?
I think I'm fortunate that I don't really get nervous around people. At least even if they have certain type of status, that's something that I've always been really good at. Maybe that's why I'm comfortable in these conversations because I don't get nervous. But what I do know is the moment I met him, you can feel like, oh, this guy's really famous. Not because he says, "Hey, look at me, I'm famous." It's a certain energy that certain people give off, and he's got kind of that main character type of energy. It's just not even forced, because in person he's actually a really nice, really respectful person. He's actually he speaks normal. But once you turn the camera on, he has this ability to ramp up his energy to another level. And I found that very impressive because everything that he does is intentional. I think people think that he's kind of extreme or out there or whatever your viewpoint may be on him. But he's actually extremely intentional with his words, intentional with his ideas and thoughts. They're actually very well thought out. And he says things in a really polarizing manner because he knows that's what resonates with certain people. There are certain phrases out there that will get people to think more. So I found him extremely impressive. I think he's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, to be honest. And he had this crazy, strange ability. If I ask him a question, most people give you an answer on one topic. He has this ability to answer a question with three answers. And what that does as an interviewer gives you three threads to pull. So there's any direction you can go because he gives you three answers. And of those three answers, you take one thread, you create another question, it creates more conversation. But as soon as you hit a topic that's parallel to an open thread that was maybe 1 hour ago, he'll loop it back around and make the connection again. And he'll reference not only what he said, but what I said. So what this shows is that he's not only very wary and conscious and has a good memory of what he said, but he's an active listener because he can remember what I said 1 hour ago in order to tie it all together. I've never seen someone do that before at that capacity. And we talk for 4 hours. That's on camera. We talk for 4 hours. We talk for like 2 hours off camera, and everything comes back and loops together. So his ability to retain information and kind of be a very engaged conversationalist, it's at a level I've never experienced in my life. So, regardless of what you think about him, super intelligent person.
Matt, he's making the rounds on Twitter Spaces as well.
Maybe we'll do one.
He's been
Yeah,
burning down the Solana blockchain and doing crypto spaces like crazy. I've been loving it. I've been loving the content. He was on with Don Jr. a few times this week in Twitter Spaces, which is really interesting dynamic. Andrew Tate and Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, Andrew Tate's
that
he's
was
built different. He's
great
a different
space.
person. I think if someone had found him and harnessed his energy when he was much younger, like his path and trajectory of life would have been very different. I think he's so brash that maybe it would have been off-putting to some people early on in life, especially when he's a young guy. Um, but I think he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever had a conversation with, for sure.
That's awesome. So with that, let's do some closing thoughts. Go ahead, Divisive.
Hey, Matt, I just want to thank you so much for joining us on Twitter Spaces. I'm someone who really believes in this platform. The reason I created my show, Divisive Content, is because the things I talk about and the guests I want to talk to are censored on every other platform. So I am going to extend the invitation. You're always welcome to be a guest. I would love to be your first live stream on X. If you've never done a live stream on X, that would be absolutely incredible. And my closing thoughts are that we need more people like you. The reason I started the Divisive Network and brought a team of live streamers together is because I want to inspire the younger generation to watch content like you create and stop following people like, Action Man and Jack Dougherty. And I think that there's an appetite for the type of content you create, the type of content I create. And I think it's being promoted because the people on X are looking for the truth. So my final question to you and my final thought is there any guest right now, if you had a magic wand and could get them on your show immediately, that you would like to have as a guest that you haven't talked to yet?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would like to speak to Elon because not because he's one of the most famous people in the world, but because I do have a lot of questions about X, and I have a I'm pretty good at getting a good feel of people, and if I feel like if I had the ability to sit in front of him, ask him real questions, not questions that are the obvious ones, but questions I'm concerned about, I think I'd have a good feel of whether or not how I really feel about this place because this is all intents and purposes, this is Elon's world that we're in. And if that's the case, I kind of like it. I am concerned because I think Elon has a little bit of God complex, and that worries me. That's the biggest concern I have, is that he seems to have a little bit of God complex, and that bothers me. So I think the only way to actually know that is just to be around it, feel the energy, feel what type of person he is. And if I'm like, I really like him, I think he's super honest, super genuine, then I'd probably commit here more.
Would you ask him any of these questions in an X space, or you want to be in front of him?
I feel like you get the best feel when you're with people because it's different. There are certain things that you can't hide. like we're in an age of technology, and you can hide emotion, you can alter your face, you can do these things, but when someone's sitting right in front of you, looking at you in the eye, most people, there's nowhere to hide. It's probably where you're most vulnerable, when you're sitting eye to eye with somebody. And I think that's really the moment that you know, okay, I like this guy or I don't. And I'm not anybody. I'm not saying I deserve it. I'm not saying he owes it to me. Of course not. But if I could wave a magic wand and figure out if I believe a guy or not, he's the guy I would like to know.
Dude, that's a great answer. And you know what? I think like you do, man. I'm kind of a Bitcoin maxi and a live stream maxi. I believe like being in person with people, even being on video with them, you get this sense of who they are, and you really get some nuance that isn't there in audio only. So I really appreciate your answer. And I'm serious, Matt. This was an amazing conversation. I have to thank Katie and the amazing speakers who came up tonight for giving me this opportunity. It is seriously the highlight of my live streaming career was having this conversation with you, Matt. So thank you so much.
Well, that's amazing. That's very humbling and extremely embarrassing. But I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to Divisive as well for hopping on. You know, Matt, when I reached out to you, like just on a whim, I was like, let me just ask him. And I tell you guys what, Matt has been so nice to me. It's, I mean, just like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. Like, you were just the coolest. And I've been excited about this. I'm sure my husband's still listening, but I did tell Divisive because it was like, what, a 2 week window where we were waiting for you to come on, maybe even 3 weeks where I was waiting. And I finally told him like Friday, and I'm just like, I've not been excited about something for this long outside of my children being born and getting married. And then there was like you coming on. But I also took some time to think about just, how nice you've been and diving into your content. And I was just so excited about just how cool you are. And this conversation just proved that I was right. Because I mean, this was awesome. I'm so glad that so many people came and got a chance to talk with you. And hopefully you'll network with some of these people. My last question is looking at some of these people that are creating basically like podcast networks. Do you have any thoughts on that, or are you involved with any other like podcast
So I
networks?
am not involved in any network intentionally. I haven't found one that I feel like I really align with. Again, I think truth and honesty and genuinity is the most important. Um, a lot of networks are really, I mean, if you're going to create a network, it's a monetization play. Of course it is. And I struggle with that. I don't know how. It's something I struggle with, because if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, then I have to figure out how to support myself for the rest of my life. At the same time, if I focus on how am I going to support myself for the rest of my life, then I feel like I'm going to sacrifice why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm stuck in this rock and a hard place type of existential kind of crisis mode in my mind at all times these days. But I think we'll figure it out. I think the idea is just stay true to who you are, stay honest, genuine. I think I'm still honing my voice. I still think I'm honing my ideas and what I really care about. I think I used to care more about social issues and I cared more about politics. I'm really starting to think that I actually care more about the importance of God and community in our lives, because I think it really does start there. I always believed it, but it's not something I ever really vocalized too much. But again, spending this weekend in Moscow, Idaho, with Doug Wilson and the community that he's built out there, people will call them crazy. People will call them cult like. They can say a million things about them. I saw it firsthand. Whatever they're doing, it works, and there's something to that, you know. So it's something I've been thinking about a lot these days. I think I'm going through my own mini crisis about trying to figure out what it is that I'm doing. But as far as community, I think the logical long term plan is that I'm probably gonna have to build my own, because I don't trust anybody else to do it.
That's what I did, Matt. That's what I did. The divisive network, man.
Yeah, I mean it's a good idea. My sister and I, when we started, we were friends with a few other podcasters, and we were like, we'll do like, something truther based and so on and so forth. And then really, I kind of abandoned that idea and the idea of joining a network. And I just am like, I don't need to call it something. It's just what I do. So like you, Matt, and how Kevin came up earlier and was talking about, we are just kind of talking about like, what is the point? What is the purpose? Like we enjoy doing it when we're doing it. But when you start thinking about all the things like booking guests and feeling the need to like be on, or, now that your audience like counts on you, like it's a lot of responsibility. And that's why people don't get past statistically 4 episodes, and they say once you make it past 50, you kind of have a breakaway moment. And he's hitting 100, and I'm probably near 100. I don't even number my podcast anymore, to be honest with you. My sister and I were podcasting together, but life has taken us in all different kinds of directions. And so I'm just like, you know what? She supports me 1000% of just doing my own thing and bouncing all over. But boiling down to the niche, it's hard when you care about so much. When you care about humanity, there's so many issues that we can talk about. We want to tell people about policies and technology and also God and also health and also gardening. Like, that's me. I'm all over the place. So I might not ever make it in one specific niche, but look at Joe Rogan. He doesn't talk about the same thing all the time,
I
right?
just wish Joe Rogan believed in God. That's my only knock on Joe Rogan. I love everything he does, but I feel like he's missing the one key piece that he needs to bring it all together.
Well, we'll have to pray for Joe
That's what I
Rogan.
think.
Maybe he'll come
Maybe he'll come
around.
around one day.
Yeah, he'll have that. I mean, it's hard. Didn't he do Girls Gone Wild and Fear Factor and stuff like that? It's so funny because people learning who Joe Rogan is now, I think, are forgetting a lot of the history of, like, I grew up with Joe Rogan and I was like, this dude is wild. Like, the infomercials on night and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyways, we'll bring it home with that. My last thing for you is, if you had 1 minute to speak to the entire world and they can hear this message, what would you say?
if there's someone online that you like, if you want to support Katie, if you want to support Divisive, if you want to support any of the people on this panel, the best way to do that is just to share the content, because that's really what matters. I don't want to plug myself. If you guys want to find me, you can always find me. But I think the people that are able to bring it together, like Katie you've done such a phenomenal job tonight. Keeping order, keeping it moving, making sure everyone's involved, asking the right questions. And I love that. I think that's amazing. You are so good at this. And I hope more people will find your spaces. I hope more people will share your spaces, because all we can do is support the ones that we love, support the ones that we trust, support the ones that we think are actually adding value into our lives. So my 1 minute, share Katie, share Divisive. That's what I hope everyone does.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for coming, Matt. We appreciate you. We're gonna keep this. We kept it right under 2 hours, guys. So I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and end this space. It is recorded, so you can continue to share it. If you missed half of it, please go back and listen. This has been an excellent interview with Matt Kemp. I appreciate all of you guys. God bless and good night.
Grace is king. Thank you, everybody.